Alright, so I played a game recently called I Was a Teenage Exocolonist. I enjoyed this game quite a bit. It's a visual novel, I suppose, which stands way above the rest. Also, there's some minor deck building and a puzzle element to it. Nothing terribly complicated, it's basically poker. I wasn't a big fan of it, but considering there's an option to skip and I went out of my way not to, that means it does something right. Anyway, what is it about? In the dark green future, the planet Earth is a barren wasteland, populated by the greedy, corrupt, and desperate. There's no innovation, no future. The people are sick and twisted, and there's only one way to move on. Find greener pastures elsewhere. In space. This is the result of their efforts. The backstory isn't spelled out right away. Actually, it sort of throws the player in the middle, already cruising through space for a long time, right before the crash landing. I appreciate that way of storytelling. Keeps the introduction brief and interesting. What did I enjoy? So many things. It would be a lot easier to say what I did not like. Oh well. First is probably how the main cast is so unique. Or maybe unique is not the right word. Polished? Well executed? It's difficult to spell it out. So here's the thing. I've seen all these characters before, but I feel like none of them ever had this much freedom to be themselves. And that goes in the direction which is quite fascinating. For example, there's this. I suppose I'll just spoil his story. He starts as a kid who just does not fit in. He doesn't like to play with others, to talk to them, or observe them like some weirdos. Instead, he finds a lot more in nature, in this foreign world where everything is strange and different. He explores, despite everyone being furious at that. He puts himself in danger, but he's not afraid. He wants to explore and exist as one with nature. He grows up, and it only cements his views. If he stays together with other kids during some activities, then as a teenager he's allowed to explore, and he never looks back again. Always out there, always gone, always doing something unknown. And as an adult, he fully embraces it, camping outside at one point, and at one point, depending on the player, abandoning the colony altogether. He can have multiple very different endings, but he still remains true to himself, embracing the fact that he's a lot more comfortable out there, in this foreign world, alone. So I feel like his character would be done differently in some other story. He could still explore and all, but he would be written as just a loner who eventually quote-unquote gets over it, and then moves on and maybe acts as some sort of tutor to other explorers. Or maybe he becomes some sort of daredevil, or he gets in some dangerous situation and the tragedy strikes. I could see all of those happening easily, but not here. He was free. He was true to himself, and he did what he wanted without compromising it with notions which he would find silly. And I respect that. I think everyone goes through phases where they find something interesting and want to try it and maybe even find some success. Some interest which doesn't make money or recognition or just plain weird, for lack of a better word. But when we change, we grow up and adapt. This doesn't. He remains himself. This makes me want to cry in envy. I want to be able to just do whatever I want, to not be tied down, to be free to be myself. Okay, good lord, that was just one point. Anyway, that was to say that everyone in the main cast is written like that, although I'd specifically praise this in Martz. With Martz, it's the fact that I hate characters like her, but she was written so much better than what I am used to. She acknowledged her flaws and respected it when she was pushed back. Also, she's the hottest character when she becomes an adult. That's not very important, but I just had to say it. When I saw her grow up for the first time, I couldn't hold back a damn! Aside from that, I found the world fascinating. How it looks and how it works. It's not that logical, all things considered. Take Hop-Eyes, for example. Those are one-legged rabbits who have giant eyes instead of ears. The practicality of this makes no sense, and a lot of other animals and plants are the same way. And I adore that. It's creative and beautiful, especially during the last season of the year. It reminds me of Blackreach and Skyrim, only even better. So alien, dark and bright at the same time. I can't think of an apt way to put it, but this look, I love that. The contrast of darkness and light, together with unique shapes, it's a little similar to driving in a big city during the night, only way better. But there are also other interesting looking places, mainly in the marsh. Red, misty, and looking almost like a giant's intestine. It felt like the artists for this game went nuts, and then the writers worked around it, trying to fit the narrative into this crazy world. Also, to tag on to that, I enjoyed the character designs, although I do think adult ones are a little too, well, horny. I think they could have been toned down a little. Kids look like kids, teenagers look like teenagers, but adults look like they are on a runway. It's just a little weird. But I described the look mostly. Thing is, the reason all this works the way it is explained by the story, and it's something of a huge spoiler. I don't want to spoil it, and besides I don't have much to say about it except that I enjoyed it immensely. This is definitely a very interesting idea. Another thing I'd like to praise is the amount of effort put into the unimportant things. Deaths, for example, how they are handled. The game has them. I think it's fairly common for games to have deaths, obviously. However, considering this game is about all character interactions and story, there's a lot more weight attached to each death. So the game warns that they happen, and there is an option to spoil all of them, as to take the sting out of it. I have to say, the first one, I felt so angry that I had to step away. I rarely got this emotional, but it felt hell, so unfair. My second playthrough was done with one goal and one goal only, to prevent that single death. Everything else was secondary. Anyway, aside from that, there's also an option to skip the puzzles. There's a very convenient save feature with a button to go to the save folder. And the saves are very, very easy to edit, in case min-maxing for skill checks is too difficult or some other reason. It's just a text file where you change the numbers from 0 to 100, that's no biggie. I'm sure there's something else I'm forgetting, but it feels like the developer put their effort into making everything as convenient as possible for the player to enjoy this game. Dialogue can be rushed through quickly, UI elements hidden, yada yada yada. This is very, very nice, and I want to pat them on the back for what they did here. This is above and beyond. I suppose I'd also like to praise the other characters, i.e. the adults. For example, the parents. So the player has a mom who is a badass revolutionary in the past, who even has a prosthetic leg from that. She's hard on everyone, but especially herself. So in the new world, on this planet she acts as a chief of agriculture, responsible for the food for the colony. Her husband is I don't know how to describe him exactly. Kind of a wimpy man who cracks stupid jokes and works with plants. Same as his wife. Obviously there's a gender role shift here. Whatever. I honestly thought it's gonna be shoved in the player's face at all times, as if to say, "Hey, look at this! The woman is wearing the pants in this marriage! Look how progressive this is!" But maybe there's a tiny bit of it, but instead it's handled just like everything else here, with dignity and respect. Flulu and Geranium just are the way they are. I expected the parents to be annoying, in a "don't do this fun thing, you damned kids" kind of way. Instead they care for the player, and they try to do their best. Sadly, there's a bit of a problem there when the player discloses certain dreams. But that's also a great thing. The parents won't always see the things from the best perspective. They aren't flawless, and that's what is so great about their writing. They are always trying their best in their own ways. A few other adults get their highlights as well, but the vast majority are much more minor. Some, like our parents, don't even get shown, but I suppose it would be impossible to give all of them enough time in the spotlight without making it insanely long and unnecessary, just as the important ones are written very well. Right, I think that's all the praise I got. What did I dislike? This always annoys me in games, but the romance. So I think it's especially prevalent in the text games, because it isn't interesting or necessary. Romance is an option, but only with the other kids, and the one other person whom I won't mention. But there are a few times when, for example, the player is offered the chance to flirt with Utopia, the one adult who is closest in age to the player. And it goes nowhere. I can't find any way to get together with her. I feel like romance is always such a lazy thing to add, considering how an option like that is just grayed out. Or hell, what if I wanted to get together with Cal's mom? Why not? Nope, just other kids. Randomly drop a horny line and it goes into the romance route. What if they aren't into me? What if they aren't straight or gay? What if they just don't see me like that? it's always weird, drawn and artificial, so I just always dislike it. Other than that, there are always a few key events which trigger other things, and I feel like they are a bit too easy to miss. Second Death is a great example of that. Then there's another event, Cal's Pet. I missed the storyline completely on another playthrough because I didn't work on the food that much, and so we didn't interact enough for this to trigger. It actually has a very emotional payoff, and I completely missed it in the second playthrough. This made me wonder how many other events I've missed, and how many I have bumbled through but could have easily missed if I had a slightly lower stats. I guess I'm just asking for hand-holding, or better yet some form of history which would list what the player did and didn't do. A checklist of all the major and minor events. A gallery sort of acts like that, but it doesn't help to find anything the player might be missing. It just lists what something is missing. Also, I feel like Helio characters, that's another problem. Actually, no. Helio characters, I actually like Nomi. No, scratch that, I actually really like Nomi. And Drax is okay, but it's the other two. Lum and Weiss. The way they are written is, I guess, is a perfect representation of why Earth got messed up the way it did. It was impossible to like them, and actually Helio was supposed to be pretty major, with lots and lots of people, yet it's just 4 who actually appear in the story. That definitely could have been explored a lot more. The inner turmoil was a huge possibility for the story, but it kind of ends after the initial few scenes up, and repeats after Mars makes her move right at the end. It's just an underwhelming story point. I guess there's not much else to complain about or just talk. So in the end, I've enjoyed this game way more than I ever expected to, and I would rank it far beyond most visual novels I've played, if really not all of them.